All right, I'm going to keep this video lecture pretty short. You guys are doing a good job. You're turning in the work, and I think watching the video lectures and doing the readings, which I appreciate. So this one's going to be short, don't worry, but we'll still cover everything you need to know for the quiz and the short papers. So again, one reason that I keep bringing up animals and the environment is because that's kind of a new thing that we're now understanding the importance of. And so it's nice when you've got these old theories, like virtue theory goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle 2,400 years ago. So a nice way to test whether these theories are going to work is to make them talk about new problems, see if they can still deal with them, right? So the paper that Hursthouse writes about virtue ethics and the environment, that's why she's doing that, because she wants to show virtue ethics is still relevant. It can still cover these new problems that come up, right? So what does she say? Well, she says two things. She says, first of all, the problems concerning the environment, we'd fix a lot of them if we just stuck with these old virtues and avoided these old vices. And then also, maybe this is an opportunity not just for virtue ethics to give us answers, but for virtue ethics to learn and expand and come up with new virtues. Maybe this environmental crisis has shown us that there are these virtues that we overlooked. So for the first point, she wants to say a lot of the old virtues and vices, very traditional ones, are actually a lot more relevant to the environment than you might think. So she talks specifically about prudence. So prudence is the virtue kind of thinking in the long term, not just thinking about your short-sighted interests, but thinking about the best ways to get what you know matters most in your life, right? So for instance, again, if you're on an athletics team and maybe you're doing just an awful drill, like you have to do planks while someone else runs around the field, and then when they're done, you have to get up and run around the field, and then you have to hold planks again, right? That can be really miserable. Why do you stick with it? Well, because you know that what you want is to be really good at your sport. And if you want to be really good at your sport, then you got to put up with these things in the short term, right? So that's prudence. That's the ability to look ahead, think about what you really want, judge correctly the best actions you should take to get what you really want, not just what you want in the short term. Why is that relevant to the environment? Well, because a lot of our policies are really short-sighted, right? We get a bunch of oil out of the earth, burn it, it goes in the atmosphere. We're not necessarily thinking about 100 years from now when maybe we won't have any oil or the earth will have heated up, right? So Hursthouse says if we really had more prudence, that would help a lot with the environment. She talks about sort of contentment, being okay with simple things, right? Because some of our problems in the environment come from all the luxury goods we produce that we don't need. We make plants go extinct because we like certain kinds of food that require seasonings or whatever, right? So again, she says, well, like the environment would be a lot better if we would have these old-fashioned virtues of frugality, contentment, where we don't need all these fancy things that deplete the planet, right? So she looks at those kind of old virtues. She says, yeah, if we just practiced those, that would help a lot. She also looks at a lot of old vices. So vice, like the documentary group, but not with the same meaning. That's just how it's spelled. Vice is an old word for a bad character trait, like the opposite of a virtue. So courage is a virtue, cowardice is a vice, that kind of stuff. She says a lot of our problems come from vices that we've known about for a long time, like greed, right? A lot of environmental problems boil down to we just want more and more profit, you know, just greed, wanting a lot more than you need, right? So she thinks if we just took seriously a lot of these traditional virtues and vices, that would help a lot with the environment. And then also, she thinks, well, maybe this is an occasion for us to understand new virtues that we've overlooked. And so the one I wanted to focus on for our class was, she says, if virtues are the management of emotions, maybe there's a virtue for the right management of wonder, right? So everybody feels wonder if you go to the Grand Canyon or Niagara Falls, or you see a giant sequoia, or whatever. You might feel wonder, right? She says maybe part of respecting the environment is that we have to treat this seriously as an emotion that we should have correct responses to, right? We should feel wonder for the right things. We should feel wonder about really old trees, or the ability of a spider to make a web out of its silk, right? We shouldn't feel it about sort of flashy, cheap things that humans might generate that are bad for the environment, like, I don't know, big glitzy fireworks shows or something. I think she says Disneyland as an example of something that she thinks doesn't deserve wonder, right? So she thinks we should come up with a virtue for the correct management of wonder so that we'll have the right emotional response to the environment. And then this will motivate us to respect it and care for it and honor it, right? So on the one hand, traditional virtues, on the other hand, new virtues, but she's trying to make the case that virtue ethics has useful things to say about the environment, that it's not just stumped by these new problems. So that's the lecture for today. Next week, our last week of material, we'll talk about care ethics.